Malaysia is a diverse country with a multi-ethnic and multi-religious population. To the north of Malaysia is Thailand, and to the south of Malaysia is Singapore. Kuala Lumpur is on the west side of Peninsula Malaysia. I would say Kuala Lumpur is a unique city full of character and personality. Today is a beautiful modern skyline, but yet full of heritage and historical sites as well. KL is most popularly known for its KLCC Twin Towers, as well as the KL Tower. If you are looking for heritage and sightseeing, you should go to places like Central Market, which is downtown of KL. Central Market is like a bazaar. It has a lot of the local handmade items. For example, things like batik. Batik is something that is totally associated with Malaysia. One of the nearby islands, which is also a city, is called Penang. You can get lots of nice sandy beaches and good food there. If you ever come to Malaysia, nasi lemak is a must-try dish made out of coconut rice, egg. It's absolutely delicious and is a classic Malaysian dish. As an ASEAN member state, Malaysia benefits significantly from booming economies in the region. Over the years, we have seen more and more technologies companies setting up their headquarters here in Malaysia.
In recent years, the rise of digital and technology industry has contributed to the economic growth as a result of lifestyle changes for consumers and spend behaviors. There is a growing community of fintechs and active startups, especially in Kuala Lumpur and Penang.
Citi has been operating as one of the leading foreign banks in Malaysia since 1959. We have a full-fledged franchise on the ground that caters to all institutional client segments, subsidiaries of our global multinational clients, financial institutions, and Malaysian corporates. Our headquarters is located in the capital city of Kuala Lumpur. It is about 10 minutes walk away from the Petronas Twin Towers. We also have a hub in Penang, which houses our City Solution Center. It's a very unique city full of character and personality. KL has really developed over the decades. Kuala Lumpur is actually a Malay word to begin with that translates to muddy confluence, which serves as a suitable metaphor for the city. Malaysia is a diverse country with a multi-ethnic and multi-religious population. To the north of Malaysia is Thailand, and to the south of Malaysia is Singapore. Kuala Lumpur is on the west side of Peninsula Malaysia. I would say Kuala Lumpur is a unique city full of character and personality. Today is a beautiful modern skyline, but yet full of heritage and historical sites as well. KL is most popularly known for its KLCC Twin Towers, as well as the KL Tower. If you are looking for heritage and sightseeing, you should go to places like Central Market, which is downtown of KL. Central Market is like a bazaar. It has a lot of the local handmade items. For example, things like batik. Batik is something that is totally associated with Malaysia. One of the nearby islands, which is also a city, is called Penang. You can get lots of nice sandy beaches and good food there. If you ever come to Malaysia, nasi lemak is a must-try dish made out of coconut rice, egg. It's absolutely delicious and is a classic Malaysian dish. As an ASEAN member state, Malaysia benefits significantly from booming economies in the region. Over the years, we have seen more and more technologies companies setting up their headquarters here in Malaysia.
In recent years, The rise of digital and technology industry has contributed to the economic growth as a result of lifestyle changes for consumers and spend behaviors. There is a growing community of fintechs and active startups, especially in Kuala Lumpur and Penang.
Citi has been operating as one of the leading foreign banks in Malaysia since 1959. We have a full-fledged franchise on the ground that caters to all institutional client segments, subsidiaries of our global multinational clients, financial institutions, and Malaysian corporates. Our headquarters is located in the capital city of Kuala Lumpur. It is about 10 minutes walk away from the Petronas Twin Towers. We also have a hub in Penang, which houses our City Solution Center. It's a very unique city full of character and personality. KL has really developed over the decades. Kuala Lumpur is actually a Malay word to begin with that translates to muddy confluence, which serves as a suitable metaphor for the city. Malaysia is a diverse country with a multi-ethnic and multi-religious population. To the north of Malaysia is Thailand, and to the south of Malaysia is Singapore. Kuala Lumpur is on the west side of Peninsular Malaysia. I would say Kuala Lumpur is a unique city full of character and personality. Today is a beautiful modern skyline, but yet full of heritage and historical sites as well. KL is most popularly known for its KLCC Twin Towers, as well as the KL Tower. If you are looking for heritage and sightseeing, you should go to places like Central Market, which is downtown of KL. Central Market is like a bazaar. It has a lot of the local handmade items. For example, things like batik. Batik is something that is totally associated with Malaysia. One of the nearby islands, which is also a city, is called Penang. You can get lots of nice sandy beaches and good food there. If you ever come to Malaysia, nasi lemak is a must-try dish made out of coconut rice, egg. It's absolutely delicious and is a classic Malaysian dish. As an ASEAN member state, Malaysia benefits significantly from booming economies in the region. Over the years, we have seen more and more technologies companies setting up their headquarters here in Malaysia.
In recent years, the rise of digital and technology industry has contributed to the economic growth as a result of lifestyle changes for consumers and spend behaviors.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Graduates Aspire webinar session. My name is Dania from Team Graduate, and you're currently tuning to the Citi Malaysia's webinar session at Graduate Aspire titled Lessons at Work I Wish School Taught Me. So in this session, our speakers will be sharing their stories, big win, setback, and learnings as they transition from school life to work life. So be sure to leave your feedback or any questions that you want to ask our speakers, as our panel will be answering live during the webinar. So without further ado, I will now pass the floor to our moderator for this session, Veer Bart. Take it over.
Thank you, Dania. Thank you so much. So a very good afternoon to all of you, or shall I say Selamat Petang. I hope you are doing well on this lovely Saturday afternoon. As Dania had mentioned, so my name is Sadveer Bhat. I am a HR advisor with Citi Malaysia and your moderator for today. Firstly, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Grad 1 team for giving us this opportunity to engage with you, actually for the third time. So this is literally Citi's hat trick with Grad 1. So the last two topics for some of you who had probably tuned in were navigating your career through a pandemic. And then last year, we spoke about enough talk, time for action. Now that we mentioned action last year, we are back with some action, hopefully this year, with lessons from work I wish school taught me. As Dania had mentioned, understand there are options for you to ask questions. Do drop your questions and we would answer as many as we can. Before we jump into the exciting chat, I would like to introduce my Citi colleagues with you that I'm sure you are able to see on your screen. Hi, Nigel, Renee, Vern, and Ida.
Hello.
I hope you're doing well. Hello, hello. Perhaps how I think we could begin is by you introducing yourself, a little bit about your career, Citi career experience, some short insight into your current role, but I think most importantly, something exciting about your schooling life, right? University, etc. So with that, maybe I see Ida, you come first on the screen. Perhaps we could start with you.
All right, thanks, Xavier. Hi, everyone. So my name is Ida Narina Ghazali. So I'm one of the senior manager within AML Financial Intelligence Unit KL Hub. So I started my career with Citi 15 years ago as a fresh graduate. Don't do the math for my age, okay? And I actually, I started as a fresh grad, joined as an analyst, and I built my career with Citi and now leading FIU teams across various countries and LOBs. I graduated from UiTM Shah Alam. Actually, I major from business faculty and major in operation management. So that's a short introduction about myself.
Thank you, Ida. Thank you, Ida. I'm sure you would have some UiTM folks on the phone and they'll be excited.
I hope so. They're my juniors.
Yes, yes. Yes, always nice. Great. Probably moving on. When you come right after, beside, my screen. So probably with you.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Pleasure to be here. My name is Ong Weaven, right, and I currently lead up the CCB, Citi Commercial Banking, KYC operations team. Basically, what we do is, as the name suggests, right, we know your customer. We do due diligence for all the new clients before they're onboarded, as well as for all our Citi existing clients. Right, I've been with Citi for about 11 years now, and I have done several roles across Citi, namely, AML projects, as well as loans operations before I move on to my current role. I'm a proud alumnus of Penang Free School, right, and I did my tertiary education in UTM Johor, right, in the engineering field.
Thank you, Vern. Renee, with you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and hi. Good afternoon, everyone, and hello. My name is Renee. I'm the head of Treasury and Trade Solutions Sales for the corporate and commercial banks in Citibank. I've been with Citibank now for almost a year, and I lead a team of 5 specialists that provides cash management and trade finance solutions to our corporate clients. Prior to this, I was working in various banks such as Deutsche Bank, Bank of New York, and also Standard Chartered. And I did various roles, such as I was a relationship manager for corporate, multinational corporates. I was also heading sales for financial institutions for Southeast Asia and trade sales and cash management sales as well. In terms of education, I was educated at International School in Bangkok. So I grew up actually many years in Bangkok. And I also attended Pembroke College in Adelaide, and I studied finance in Curtin University. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Nigel, over to you.
Thanks, Abir. Hello, I'm Nigel. My career has predominantly been in the IT industry, so I spent about 20 odd years in the IT industry. And my current role right now is covering risk and control, predominantly more on the first line of defense for operations and technology businesses. And here's a little twist. I studied economics and accounting from the University of Hull, UK. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. And I think for our audience today, if you would have probably heard what all my four colleagues had said, it's interesting to see the whole mix between some of them who probably come from local universities, one who's probably done his schooling in the UK and another in Australia, and they're all very successful in their career, successful city bankers. And I think what we'll probably do is, as we progress and move along the conversation today, we'll have a lot more deep dive into some of these things that you would have taken away from your university studies, etc. Going into just back to the topic, right, which is lessons from work I wish school taught me. If I could go back to my friends on the screen and perhaps ask you, connecting this to your school or schooling time, which seems to be exciting. I know for some of us, it's like, oh my God, that was many years ago, but now time to, re-relate to it. We could probably start with a rapid fire. So what I would like for each of you to do is give me the first expression or the first thought that comes to you when I mention lessons from work I wish school taught me. So if I could probably start with you, Nigel.
First thing that comes to my mind is mentoring.
So Nigel's word is mentoring. Ida. Sorry, Ida, you're mute.
Sorry, emotional intelligence for me.
So Ida has said EQ. Renee?
Soft skills like teamwork.
Soft skills. Okay, Vern?
Stakeholder management for me.
Sorry?
Stakeholder management.
Yeah. So by the time it came to you, Vern no longer rapid fire. You already had time to think. Not fair. Okay, cool. Interesting. So we have got mentoring, we have EQ, we have soft skills, and one has said stakeholder management. Probably an opportunity for us to expand on that a little so that our audience are able to understand where you're coming from when you had mentioned this. So since you had all the time to think earlier and not rapid fire, I'm going to go with you. So what do you mean by stakeholder management?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Avia. Right. So when I think about stakeholder management, right, there are a few things which I think about, right, which I thought, hopefully, things would have been, the advice would have been given to me back then when I was in school, right? And because I think stakeholder management is really one of the most critical things that we should, maneuver around, right, in the corporate world. And, driving results are really highly dependable, right, on how well we manage the various key stakeholders that we have, right, in the day-to-day work that we do, right? I would bucket, the stakeholders into two main categories, right? One is, management. Definitely, as you come into the corporate world, you would have your own managers, right? And it's how you manage upwards, right? I think essentially it's, how you keep the managers informed of updates, right? Assessing when's the right time to escalate, when not to escalate, what to escalate, right? And I think most importantly, when to call for help when you're stuck with a resolution, right? And I think if you sit on an issue, what we always say is that, the problem become, all yours, right? But the moment you share it with your manager, then it becomes a shared problem, right? We can brainstorm and we can discuss what's the solution, right, to that issue, right? So I think what is important is how do we make sure that you're managing upwards, correctly or adequately is really getting, soliciting feedback from your managers through periodic one-to-ones, right? Because I think every manager has a different approach, different preference, different style, right? So I think the faster you understand and align with your manager, right, I think the better the working relationship would be, right? And I think the second bucket would be in terms of, peers and your partners, right? How you build relationships with your peers, because I think those are very important, right? How, in a high performing team, we want to make sure that, all the different skills are being leveraged upon, right, for us to all achieve the common goal, right? So I think it's very important that, especially if you're new to a team, you want to break the ice, right? by doing things like, just simple things like going out for meals, drinks, get to know each other, right? And I think with rapport built over time, right, it is much easier to accomplish things together, right? And I think one common pitfall that I would advise to avoid is really, there are some people who just reach out to people when they need help, right? So I think it's very important that we always maintain, that periodic casual contact, right? Rather than, just reaching out to people only when you need help, right? I think that's, that's probably my parting comment.
So if I may add to Ben, because I feel that my word is somehow related to that, because to manage that stakeholder, I think it has to start somewhere from the beginning. Emotional intelligence, because it has to start. If you see it from school itself, right? Kids nowadays, you can see the way they speak with their friends is different. The way they speak with the teachers is different. Sometimes you even, I have a 11 years old, okay, when she speaks with her friends, and then when I see that she interact with other kids that is much older, it's different. And then I'm like, oh my God, I never teach her this, It's like it started already at an earlier age, which during my time back then, this we don't have this emotional intelligence. How do you manage or interact with your friends? How you interact with your teacher? Because we normally will be afraid with our teacher, right? We try to avoid. You see your teacher, then you turn the other way around, or you try to avoid, right? But actually, that is the something that we need to teach kids from younger age to actually manage and work towards, to use their ability, to use it to manage their emotion in a positive way, and then it will help when as they go to their career. Like, how do they manage, the stakeholder upwards or downwards? How, because they already said that the way they're thinking, the way is positive thinking, and how do they structure and reach out to these people? It has to have a very strong emotional intelligence for them to be able to think such ways. So so I sort of cover up my topic also, right?
You did.
Sorry to jump in.
Very well. I think when it comes to EQ and relationships, we all get very passionate, and it is so relatable, right?
Yes,
I mean, like Ida, to your point, like I've got a 10-year-old. A lot of times, she tells me stuff that surprises me, and it's not something that we could have probably thought at that age. Sometimes even at our age, we don't relate to it. Mm-hmm. And and going back to what could be taught at school, and for some of our audience must be thinking, but when it's talking about managing my manager, whereas in my current environment, I don't have a manager. But I think what probably is one of the takeaway is when we talk about managing manager, we are just making it very general to say it's really understanding different relationships and how do you navigate through those different relationships. So the relationship in this case, to one's point, it could be a manager, which would be a future relationship that one would have. But I think even in your current environment, it could be just a mere professor. That's someone, right. And you would have multiple professors. Some professors that are probably there and they're all there for you, but there'll be some professors who are just probably the tougher ones. So like Ida said, right, when your discipline teacher walks in, I'd rather walk the other way. I have done that because I do not want to bump into her. Yeah. But it's about really, the more you are able to phase it, the more you're able to sort of like structure how you want to approach it. It just builds you for these complex relationships as you move forward in life and career. And I think going back to that, and now that we're talking, I think Renee, you mentioned soft skill, and I think a lot of these probably are bits of what you were hoping to relay. But if it's over and above what we have just spoken about, what would be some specifics that you would like to share?
Yeah, thank you, Sabir. And, definitely very relatable what Ida, and, Vern mentioned about, EQ and things like that, which is all soft skills because these are non-technical skills. So what, for me, soft skills are non-technical skills. So it's like ability to work well with people, the teamwork, and having, very effective communication skills, which includes, a good presentation, public speaking, be able to do that. Because, when you enter the workforce, after college, you realize it's actually really different from school and college. Because, in college, it's very exam-based, very results-based. So you probably tend to spend a lot of time alone studying to achieve academic results, good. And you don't necessarily have to work with people to achieve, good grades. So a lot of focus is on yourself. But once you enter the workforce, you will realize that you really cannot achieve a lot of things yourself or do anything yourself, right? You need to collaborate, work with people, your colleagues, different stakeholders that was mentioned earlier, your bosses, to achieve a common goal. Let me give you an example. Okay, I'm in sales, or in my team in sales. So our goal is to bring in revenue by providing solutions to our clients so that they will use Citibank, right? And so in order to win a deal, so I have to go to the client and speak with them and talk to them to find out the requirements and what the problems have. And once that is understood, I will need to then go back to the bank, work with my colleagues in perhaps product to build a solution, to structure a solution that will solve the problems. Then I might have to work with, compliance or legal to come up with, a legal agreement, and also to implement the solution. I would have to work with an implementation team. So all this, as you can see, is not just me delivering a solution. It's just working with a lot of different people within the company. And all these people have different personalities. They don't work the way you do. Some may pull their weight, some have different priorities. So that's where your interpersonal skills or EQ comes into play, because you somehow have to bring everyone together to achieve that goal that you have. So that is, one area that I wish I learned more about, working well with people. The other thing is, having really good presentation and public speaking skills. Ability to present well, speak well is really critical, nowadays, especially in the Zoom environment. Because, I do this every day. I'm always, for example, pitching or presenting ideas to colleagues or clients, and also have to present to my bosses about, just providing updates on what I'm doing on my financial performance, and even participating in forums like this, right? So, the ability to, you have to be engaging, convincing, deliver clear message, and present with confidence. These are just some of the soft skills that's really extremely important to help you be effective in your work and, to have a successful career. That's
yeah. Thank you, Renee. I think really resonates, and I like the whole example about what you had provided in terms of your role and the multiple individuals you are needing to engage, work with, collaborate with in order for the final result.
That's right.
For the final result. And I think if we take it back home to school, that's exactly what a lot of us have probably done with the multiple projects. A lot of times you have that opportunity of working in a particular group, and then you're sunny and you have to work with another group, and you would always have those conflicts. It's like one person is pulling the weight, the other person is probably not delivering, one is busy sleeping till 12 in the afternoon, and somebody is probably burning the midnight oil. So how do you then, and sometimes the opportunity of you being a leader in that environment, how do you then really influence and bring everybody together? I know, Nigel, I would come to you shortly, but before we get into that, I just have got one question for you before we really talk about the whole mentoring bit. So Renee made a very, for me, a strong point where you had mentioned the whole communication bit a couple of times. And I think you had said presentation, the ability to, I would probably replace the word speak with articulate. So the ability to articulate well, especially in the current environment where we are all on Zoom. So in your view, Nigel, what are some of the things that you have observed or you feel that could probably be something that, the audience today could acquire? Because when we talk about ability to communicate, sometimes the misconception is, oh, I just have to have a flawless English the way Renee speaks. Do I have to use huge bombastic words? I have got a different opinion, and hence why I wanted to hear it from, probably from Nigel, and then if any of you have anything else to add before we get into the mentoring bit.
Well, I was hoping that the mentoring bit can help explain some of that, because I think having the great communication skills comes with practice, without a doubt. But having a mentor does help, because you get an ability to get a critical feedback in terms of what areas you need to improve on. And having mentors, or even not even an official mentor-mentee relationship, but somebody that can help you improve, just provide useful critique on how you can improve, certainly will help and let you get along in terms of presentation skills within the organization.
Right. Now that's a very strong point, right? Because I think when we talk about mentoring, even though yes, it's a very popular word used today, but I think if we take it back to school, the one key point that you had mentioned was the feedback bit, and I think if we're combining that with communication, probably what is one takeaway is you can also use that. So your mentor need not be somebody who's super senior than you. It could also be, and I think in Citi, and I would want to touch that point, we use this reverse mentoring.
Reverse mentoring.
Reverse mentoring. So I don't know, Nigel, if you could shed some light in terms of that, which could relate to the audience.
Yeah, sure, Satri. I think before we go into reverse mentoring, I think what I want to highlight with mentoring is that, for me personally, I've benefited from mentoring in my career progression, especially when I'm new to the organization or when I take on a new role. Mentoring has certainly facilitated to ease into that new role, into the organization, and how you can navigate within the organization, right? So the reality is that pathway to success in the workplace is never easy, nor is it obvious, right? You hear a lot of feedbacks on how to do and what to do, so on and so forth, right? So without doubt, having someone who can coach you, right, can help you along your career progression, especially when you're new in the workforce. And also equally important is during your career progression, as you move up, as you climb up the ladder, it's still equally important to have mentors to guide you along the way, right? And you're right, Sabir, it's not necessarily a one-way traffic where we only hear from the mentor or somebody senior, right? The advice does not necessarily just come from just because somebody is senior, right? Reverse mentoring is equally important. And that's an aspect, as you mentioned, Citi is keenly adopting, right? So this is where mentors are the younger workforce, your millennials, your Gen Z or Z, right, to some. And the mentees are the senior VPs, the directors, the managing directors, usually are the boomers and the Gen X, right? And the idea is for the senior manager or the senior staff to be coached by the younger employees, especially in the areas of digital thinking, technology, or even workforce trends, just to name a few. And that's why I feel it's important that graduates are aware about, the ability of mentoring and how we can help them at a very early on in the stage in a career. And it's something that is, for me personally, important to adopt very early on in your career.
Yeah. Listening to all of you, I sort of think this quote from Haruki Murakami, which is a famous Japanese writer for some of us who know, probably really sums it up beautifully. So what Murakami says is, the most important things we learn at school is the fact that the most important things can't be learned at school. And I know it's when you read it once, it's sort of like confusing us, right? But when you really reflect on what he says, and I think when I were to ask you, based on that quote, so what Murakami says, the most important things we learn at school is the fact that the most important things can't actually be learned at school. So how do you feel about this statement, and if it does resonate with you, or do you feel, or how do you feel school had perhaps prepared you to land your first job or to be a successful Citibanker today?
Yeah, I would think it's a mixture of both, right? I mean, I would agree to the statement to a certain extent, right? Because I think it really depends on how best you make out of your schooling life, right? Because, for example, if one is only focused on academics alone in school, then yes, you probably have not learned a lot of, the important things, right, that you could potentially apply in the corporate world. Right. So for instance, for me, I think school had really prepared me well, right, in a couple of areas, right. One is definitely in terms of academics, right. For instance, I think, just this week as well, my boy was going through, his exams, it's an examination week. And I was just kind of like, coaching him on how to, strategize in an exam, right. Like, the usual basic ones, right. Easy questions first, harder ones later. Right, and being detail oriented, cutting down on careless mistakes, and I think all this, really do apply as well, right, in the corporate world, because we do really need to make sure that every time or everything that we do is right, the first time and each time as well, right. So I think that's definitely one key learning from school, right. The second one, for me is really, because I was very active in co-curricular activities back in school and in university as well, right, and that's where I feel really, largely it has shaped my character, right, who I am today, right, through active participation in those, activities, right? Because I think, thinking back, right, at the age of 16, I was already managing, kind of leading a society of like 100 plus people, right? And that's where you really learn to, work with different people, right? And also leading, right? I mean, that's my first experience of leadership as well, right? But before even getting there, right, at the age of 13, 14, 15, right, I was a member, right, I work with, my peers as well, right, so back to my earlier point about stakeholder management, it all really began back then, right, when you were active. But I think beyond school as well, right, once you enter the corporate world, right, it's really a lot about learning the ropes, observing the seniors, right, I think picking up the good, noting the bad so that you can avoid the negative ones, right. And I think it's a lifelong learning process, right? I think the panelists will also agree with me that every day we deal with different types of issues, right? Especially the non-technical scenarios, right? You don't have a textbook or past year exam questions, to refer to, for example, right? So it's a lot of learning from experience and adapting to various scenarios, right? As it comes along, right? So it's really a lot of adaptability as well. Yeah.
When you said past year exam questions, it reminds me, I don't know how many of you did that. Popular Bookshop used to sell past year questions. So they'll actually have it. So every year before any big examination, you literally go and buy all of that. It's usually for the last 5 years. So
yeah, and it's very useful, right? Because most of the questions might repeat.
And it's interesting because a lot of times, like you said, right, with the journey, you sort of like go on post school. Sometimes you did wish you had those past year questions, so like you sort of like had those answers, but it's not, right? And going back, and I wanted to say this, which is tickled me a little. You said school prepared me. So those who are from Penang and from Penang Free School now are saying, yes, Vern, to you, that school did prepare us.
That's good.
Yeah. So going back to that point, and I think, Renee, if I may ask you, and of course, you probably amongst the five of us on the screen or the call today, you had studied, like you mentioned, in Bangkok, and then you moved, and with your education in Australia, etc. How, in your opinion or in your experience, has all of this sort of like translated for you or helped you, be who you are today?
You mean in terms of, all my experiences?
So your lesson, So your experience, lessons at school that probably have, sort of like made you who you are today. The role that you do or the career journey that you had been on, etc.
Well, I was very fortunate. In my schooling, in terms of I had an opportunity to study in various places, And, I got to mix with people with different diverse backgrounds. And so, and in Bangkok, Australia, so I had to learn to, fit in many ways to the culture, to interact with people with different cultures, different backgrounds. And, really helped me to have an open mind, and also to, just interact well with people in terms of my interpersonal skills. That's how that really helped me. Thank you, Sabir.
Yeah, the different culture, and that's so true, right? I think being a Malaysian and a proud one, it's just probably so beautiful that today being in Malaysia, because we have got so many different cultural people come from different ethnicity, different cultural background, and the upbringing is so unique and different. I think that also sort of like shapes sometimes in the way some individuals do respond to certain things at work. So I think going back to what we had discussed earlier, when we talk about the whole stakeholder, the relationships, I think it's also really navigating through that. And the one of the plus point perhaps for the ones who go through the Malaysian stream is you get that early on exposure, the adaptability of, the different thought processes, etc. We did, I know, speak a little bit about the whole academics bit, and I think Renee, you had touched on that a little. So just going back to one thought that I had, where grades are the stepping stone. It gets you the job, but does not determine your success. It's not a quote from a famous person. It's actually from yours truly, because I relate to it a lot. So, if Nigel, I were to ask you, how much does that statement resonate with you? Like, and if you could share your thoughts.
Yes, I think it resonates very well with me, right? As I mentioned, I graduated in economics and accounting, but somehow ended up in the IT industry for, like 20 odd years, right? And now I'm doing a totally different role under risk and control. So my view is that, you learn the theories in the school, but you apply the practicals in the workplace. Right now, for graduates entering the workforce, unfortunately or fortunately, your grades will be the first few indicators that potential employers will look at to evaluate whether they want to take a chance on you, right? And the reality is that it certainly opened doors. Yes, grades do open the doors, right? But how successful you are in the workplace will be determined by a few factors. How you demonstrate agility or adaptability, as we keep hearing in this panel, right? Resiliency, and sometimes how well you can think on your feet. And certainly those are not the only factors, as the panel have shared, right? How well you work with your business partners, your colleagues, right? And how well you handle your stakeholders. Right. And more importantly, how do you overcome all the problems and remove the hurdles? And those are key success factors in the workplace. Right. So, and these are things that, you would not be able to learn fully in the school, but you have to go with the experience. And as I mentioned, that is why I feel mentoring is very important, because there's just so many criteria of success factors. And having that coach really helps you to navigate some of them. And it certainly did help me in my career progression.
No, thank you for that, Nigel. And I think you said thinking on your feet, which all of us are literally doing today. So yeah, that's like a live example of that. I know we are having a bit of an exciting chat, but we do have some questions that have come up, and perhaps one or two that we may want to dive into, because I think they're quite relatable. So we have this question from Joshua. Hi, Joshua. He has said that I'm intrigued to know about the thought process in case Citibank faces some problems, and if there is any framework that the team uses to brainstorm, perhaps build a good thought process framework. Well, this is a very good one. And I think we Citibankers on the call today are able to relate to it a lot. I think it's all about the crisis management bit, right? COVID was one big thing and multiple other things. So any of you who would probably want to add on further to what Joshua had to say? Yes, Nigel.
Maybe I'll give this a shot, right? So I think for a fact of the matter is the experience in Citi, we do have a lot of policies and standards and also documentation to help us to handle a lot of situations, right? The reality is, there are documentation, right? You can read it, you can remember it, memorize it, and hopefully you understand it. But the reality is, in a lot of my experience, is when a situation arises, that usually gets thrown out the window. People just have to react to the situation. So I think what Citi does well in those kind of situation is to always to do a post-mortem analysis, what went well, what didn't go well, right? And more importantly, to have as many drills as possible so that you can simulate a real life situation, a crisis, so that you know what to do, who to go to, who are the important persons or parties that you need to reach out to, how well you want to work, and also to think about your internal processes. How would you manage it in a worst case scenario? Are you ready for it? And if you're not, obviously put in a plan to try to address them. So I think for my personal experience, practice makes perfect, and the drills certainly help. Right, without doubt, without going into details of what frameworks and everything, every organization have them, right? So the key thing is how do you put it in practice, and having drills and crisis management, desktop kind of practices, those are important.
No, I think Nigel very spot on, and I would probably also like to add, yes, to Nigel's point, a lot of times frameworks are there, a lot of times frameworks are not there, and I think COVID was one very classic example where the whole world never expected it. But I think going back to some of the things that we had spoken about, right? Being agile, being flexible. Renee's point about ensuring that you have the relationships. I think one of you said stakeholder, the communication, the network really helps, because these are the times where everybody does come in together. And then you sort of that's when the brainstorming literally happens. You may not be the subject matter expert in that area, and hence why the network becomes super, super important for you to really tap on the different individuals. And a lot of times frameworks are actually developed from such, interaction. Yes. Sorry. Renee, you were going to add on something?
No. When you were talking about networking, and network, I was just thinking about the importance of networking, and I wanted to actually share with the graduates here. That was a skill that I really wished I knew how important it was, because when I didn't know how important it was until I started working, and it's really especially more important when you climb the corporate ladder, and it's through these relationships that you build throughout the years, you kind of help you make progress in terms of your career path, quickly. It can basically help you gain access to, future career opportunities, help you meet your potential mentors, prospective clients and partners, and, gain information quickly. So I was just smiling when, so just talking about networking. And it certainly helped me a lot having, to have built a good network, because, for example, right, when you want to find employment, having a wider network client context will ensure that you have a bigger chance of finding a job, because, most of the time statistics show you that, I think you can tell, right, 86% of people you fill the jobs is by referrals. So, and that's very true in my life. 90% of my jobs was, the jobs that I landed was through recommendations from people such as my ex-bosses, my clients actually that referred me to employers and, headhunters. So, and when I want to fill, a role, I tend to call my, network of people that I know for recommendations. So that's something I really wish that, I learned more about networking.
Yes. Nice one, Renee. Yes. So I think what we may want to do is we have got pretty good traction in terms of questions that are coming. And I think we've got one from Jensen. I would want to relate to Jensen a quote that recently I had read, which talks about education is the passport for the future for tomorrow. And it belongs to those who prepare for it today. And I think that's very relating to the question Jensen had. So hi, Jensen. So Jensen's question is, would really love to know from the panelists, what do you think the current education system could improve in helping future leaders better prepare for the working world? So I think it's a very powerful one, and I'm assuming a lot of us, or most of us on the call, would have a lot to say. Perhaps, Ida, we could start with you on what your view is of that question.
Well, in my opinion, I feel that school today could expose children to be more in public speaking, to be more vocal and confident, because I trying to relate to, when I interview fresh grad, right? So when we look at their, their certifications, their results, it's very good. I wouldn't deny it's straight A's, but they do not have the confidence when during interviews. They're unable to, like what you mentioned just now, Savio, they're unable to articulate what they have, in their mind, and that is a struggle that these graduates has. And we know they are very smart. They can deliver the work, but when they cannot speak up, they cannot answer the questions during interview, it's difficult for us as interviewer to assess. Although how much we want to hire them, because we know they probably get a nervous breakdown or what. So that's why sometimes as interviewer we try to rephrase our questions, or we tell them do you need more time, or what do you do not understand about the question, so that we could ask them in their language so that they could answer better. So in my opinion, I feel that schools education should also focus some certain percentage in public speaking classroom for every student, to give opportunity to speak in front of their class, and this will definitely build their confidence whenever they want to come forward. That attitude to come forward, to open up, to raise issues, it has to start from school. Because the moment you reach out to your uni and work, it's a bit I wouldn't say it's impossible, but they need to work harder to achieve that if they do not start from the beginning. So that's what I feel.
Thank you for that, Ida. And I think one tip I probably want to give the audience while Ida is speaking. Yes, I totally do relate to it a lot. I think public speaking. So some of us would ask, and just for everybody's benefit, 4 out of the 5 of us on the call today are actually from the Kebangsaan school, like including me, right? So we are where we are, and a lot of times, it's always easier to perhaps blame the other party. Because it's always easier, right? It's like, oh, it's this is not going right. And all of us have probably a lot to say about the education system. But going back to what Ida had said, today we have got a lot of different clubs as well, externally. And it is not that difficult to set those up in your current environment. So for example, if you are a part of a particular university, and if you are, and the whole public speaking confidence resonates with you, there's no harm in you just operating your own orators club or your own mini Toastmaster within that university. After all what public speaking is requires you to do is preparation, ensuring you have a script. You probably need a mic if you have a larger audience. If you have a loud voice like us, you perhaps don't need that. And being able to just speak in front of a group and just speak. And I think when you start talking, and a lot of times you start with a script, you just acquire a lot of those things that Ida had mentioned, whether it's confidence, whether it's ability, and moving on to, what Nigel had said, the whole mentoring feedback thing, because that's what a public speaking club gives you. It gives you, and that audience then provides you that feedback. And, to Nigel's point, that's a lot of times where the mentoring also happens. So it doesn't have to be just, somebody who's super senior than you. So perhaps something, some of us could probably want to look at. Wen, anything to add on that, in your opinion?
Yeah, I would think, at the end of the day, it's really self-initiative as well, right? So like to your point, there are many avenues and clubs out there as well, like Toastmasters, right? Especially if it comes to public speaking, right? It's self-initiative. Where are the areas that you want to improve yourself, right? And you need to, basically spend your time, make some effort, right? To, indulge in those activities, right? So then only you can improve, right? Yeah.
Oh, okay. I do agree with you guys. Self-initiative is just sometimes I do feel, I don't know whether it's our culture or what, but certain people, not everyone would have that determination to initiate things. Sometimes they need someone to help push them, to have that start, like a kickstart. So it's everyone's situation is different. So that's why in my opinion, it has to be a combination of this. It means everyone has to play their part and role to, help somehow help and support these people so that, they be able to speak up and, and be vocal and so that they can be heard. Then.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think support system.
Yep.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought I heard Renee say something. Okay. Yeah. No, I said support system is super, super crucial. Nigel, so your mentoring questions resonates with Ken Yuan a lot. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Wong Ken Yuan. And Wong's or Ken Yuan's question is, Nigel, what are the traits we should be looking for in a good mentor?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think there are no hard and fast rules on that. For me personally, from my experience, it always starts with somebody that inspires you, whether it's in the organization or whether it's somebody that is remote, right? Far away, like, that you find what they say is inspiring and it compels you to say, what can I do to reach that level, right? And equally, like what you mentioned, Sadhbir, right? It doesn't have to be somebody senior. It can be your friends, your people who really want to see you succeed, right? Because, the idea is, they're not here to put you down or criticize you, but to provide you very good feedback so that you can improve, right? So a lot of mentors, and I've been very fortunate to encounter some of them. They have a very natural ability to see someone succeed, and for me, that is a very important trait of a good mentor, because ultimately they want to see you succeed. That's the whole point of mentoring, right? You want to improve yourself, and getting the necessary guidance, feedback is important, right? And more importantly is that it's also important that you also understand what it takes to reach that level, right? A self-realization of sorts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would probably also want to add one point, I think, drawing from what Ida had said. Sometimes it's also probably easier when you sort of like do kind of break it into what are some of the specifics that one is needing to work on. So to Ida's point, if it's really the communication, if it's really the confidence, then going back to the support system, and to Nigel's point, then you may want to then look for a mentor who is probably, in your view, good in that area. Because one, you're able to then connect and learn with. And then to Ida's point, that individual could be that person who pushes you to do it, who encourages you, who, shows you the right path. And a lot of times, not a lot of time, but sometimes the self-realization does come by because you may just be oblivious and you may not, and you need somebody who's able to, relate to that. Talking about self-realization, and I think EQ, it's a sort of like a big area. No,
Sure.
Ida, you had mentioned on EQ, and Renee, you had chimed in from the soft skill bit to say how important was EQ. So we actually do have a question. And Renee, I think probably an apt one for you, where this individual says, and it comes without a name, so hello, whoever it's raised it, understand the importance of emotional intelligence, but possible to explain that in relations to an analyst. Any example of what you see in fresh graduates who succeed? So I think the question is more how, EQ is probably important for fresh graduates for them to succeed.
Let me take that because I think it's related to the analysts within AML. So for me, we are, the transactions monitoring analysts. We do hire fresh graduates. I think majority of our analysts are fresh graduates. So when we talk about emotional intelligence, right, what I do see the fresh grad that have a positive mindset, these are the graduates that would be successful and they able to progress within the set expectations set by the business. And when we look at their result, their profile based on their performance discussion with their manager, we can see these people which is very positive and receptive towards feedback, because in the AML transaction monitoring departments, our policy to fraud, terrorist financing is very change is very constant. So you need to be able to be prepared and ready that today I have to do the work like this, the next day it probably change. So if you don't have that emotional intelligence, you can easily get frustrated. Things are changing very fast and I get rejected. My case got rejected, my senior rejected my case, and I got QA, quality assurance finding. I got quality issues with my cases. And if they are not able to manage this feedback in a positive manner and take it constructively, it will be very difficult for them to progress and, to the next level. When they able to, they look as feedback, because we need to think positive. Feedback is actually a very valuable, to me, asset, because when people give feedback means they care that they want you to improve. If people stop giving feedback, then you have a concern. Because there's no such thing as we are perfect, okay? So when people give feedback and when we take it constructively and learn from those mistakes, not making the same mistake again, these are the graduates that we see able to, move forward. And some of them even able to actually progress to, a senior analyst quite fast, even before the set target timeline that we have. So it depends on how the graduate themselves open themselves to learning, to new information, to new knowledge. So this is something that we cannot teach and tell them what to do. It has to come from they themselves. So that's the answer for me.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Ida. And I think the person who wrote it, probably it's your future. I hope.
Yes,
you never
please.
know.
I hope I answered that question. Please don't be scared to join us.
Thank you. I think we are almost at the top of the hour. We do have some other questions that are coming, which I think we will address at a later time. One of the insights that I had got today from our casual fun chat were a lot to do with I think we shared mentoring, we shared networking, but I think we also spoke a lot about the whole self-awareness bit, which I think was a very powerful point that Nigel had spoken about. Being open, being engaged. I think a lot to do with asking the right questions. There's never a wrong or a bad question ever. The agility bit about being flexible, being open. So perhaps what I want to ask some of my colleagues on the call, if there are any other final thoughts that you would perhaps like to leave the audience with today.
I'd like to share something to the new graduates. I just want to, just let them know, don't be afraid to try new things, be bold, open to new opportunities, even if it's not necessarily 100% aligned to your degree or technical skills. In fact, in my unit, a lot of them, the background is not, banking or finance. They are mathematicians, engineers, so it doesn't have to, be 100% aligned to your degree. You're still young, so you can afford to, explore. And even if you make a mistake, right, and you find out this is not what you want, you still have time, to move on. So don't be afraid. Just try. That's the only way you can find out what you're good in and what inspires you. That's my parting message.
Yeah, and I think for me, Xavier, one key point I think we spoke, in the last 1 hour, and I think a lot of the points that came up, like EQ, mentoring, soft skills, these are all stakeholder management. So these are all things where you acquire off the class, off the academics, right? I think that's where my advice to all these aspiring graduates is to focus on these areas, right? Whilst academic is definitely important, right? As we mentioned earlier, it gets you the scroll, right, to get you your first job. But beyond that is really what you do, right, with that scroll, right, with that academic scores, and all these things come into play, right? And the self-initiative that you take as well, right, to improve yourself. So I think those are all really very key attributes that we look out for in the corporate world.
Yeah. Thank you, Warren. Yes. So I think it's sort of like very beautifully sums up our conversation today. So what I would like to leave the audience with is perhaps a final thought that, in my view, and I'm sure all of us would relate to, we Citibankers relate to on a daily basis, which is school is not the end, but only the beginning of your educational journey. So with that, all the best with your learning journey. Goodbye and take care.
All the best.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Thank you so much, our speakers, for a very interesting session. It definitely did remind me so much of my time in high school, mostly in a good way. I hope everyone enjoyed this session as much as I did and have learned some beneficial tips from the speakers to help you in your career journey. So be sure to visit Citi Malaysia's virtual booth, and don't forget to vote them as Malaysia's most preferred employers for the Gradon Brand Award. You can place your vote at their virtual booth or the Brand Awards website at brand-awards.gradon.com. So be sure to tune in to the next webinar on endemic work culture, featuring speakers from MBank, Bank Islam, Setia, and CIND at 3 p.m. Thanks for tuning in, and see you again soon. Bye, everyone.
Malaysia is a diverse country with a multi-ethnic and multi-religious population. To the north of Malaysia is Thailand, and to the south of Malaysia is Singapore. Kuala Lumpur is on the west side of Peninsular Malaysia. I would say Kuala Lumpur is a unique city full of character and personality. Today is a beautiful modern skyline, but yet full of heritage and historical sites as well. KL is most popularly known for its KLCC Twin Towers, as well as the KL Tower. If you are looking for heritage and sightseeing, you should go to places like Central Market, which is downtown of KL. Central Market is like a bazaar. It has a lot of the local handmade items. For example, things like batik. Batik is something that is totally associated with Malaysia. One of the nearby islands, which is also a city, is called Penang. You can get lots of nice sandy beaches and good food there. If you ever come to Malaysia, nasi lemak is a must-try dish made out of coconut rice, egg. It's absolutely delicious and is a classic Malaysian dish. As an ASEAN member state, Malaysia benefits significantly from booming economies in the region. Over the years, we have seen more and more technologies companies setting up their headquarters here in Malaysia.
In recent years, the rise of digital and technology industry has contributed to the economic growth as a result of lifestyle changes for consumers and spend behaviors. There is a growing community of fintechs and active startups, especially in Kuala Lumpur and Penang.
Citi has been operating as one of the leading foreign banks in Malaysia since 1959. We have a full-fledged franchise on the ground that caters to all institutional client segments, subsidiaries of our global multinational clients, financial institutions, and Malaysian corporates. Our headquarters is located in the capital city of Kuala Lumpur. It is about 10 minutes walk away from the Petronas Twin Towers. We also have a hub in Penang, which houses our Citi Solution Center. It's a very unique city full of character and personality. KL has really developed over the decades. Kuala Lumpur is actually a Malay word to begin with that translates to muddy confluence, which serves as a suitable metaphor for the city.